couple slides are similar to what we've done before. So, oops. So thank you all for attending our workshop tonight. I'll introduce whoever's online at the moment. I'm the treasurer, Shani Asato of the Torrance Council. I've been at the unit level in all the financial positions, I think, treasurer, financial secretary, auditor, and president. I've been recording secretary, all kinds of things there. But Mary Sharp is here. She is our financial secretary. Anything you'd like to share about Mary? No, she's been treasurer as well at many units, financial secretary at other units as well. Amanda Gutierrez, she's our 7th VP, and she will be leading this thing. I think that's all we have from council at the moment. So this slide here just shows who our council financial team are. Our 9th VP is Wafa Zarali. She's our director of budget and finance, and our auditor, Jen Rusty, is she may be attending later on. I'm not sure if she'll be joining us, but these are our contact information. You can reach us at this financial team at torrancecouncil@ptas.org email address, or you could contact any of us individually at the email addresses on the left here. For any documents or papers that you need to turn in or reports that you need to turn in, please email them to this email address, docs@torrancecouncil@ptas.org. If you do send them to the old email addresses from before, I believe they do get forwarded to the new addresses, but please keep in mind that this year all of our email addresses have changed. This workshop tonight is, we're calling it the advanced financial workshop, just because we are not covering some of the information that was covered in the beginning financial workshop. That one has more basic information about how to do a lot of the reports and specific scripts about what to do at the meetings. If you'd like to see that, as I said, I added that the slides to the email that was sent out today, but you could also watch the recording if you so desire, and the slides and handouts are also included there. But this, again, this is an advanced financial workshop. We're not going to be covering the auditor duties that in this workshop. We'll touch on some of the things that the auditor should know and should be familiar with, but we won't be going over the auditor what their responsibilities are. That will be in a workshop covered next week, so that Jen Rusty will be doing. This is just a background slide about the different resources that you could reach out to if you have questions. Your first thing to look at would be the unit bylaws and the standing rules. You should be able to get this from your unit parliamentarian or your president. The Torrance Council of PTA's website has a lot of information about the financial forms and documents that you'll need to, that you would be helpful throughout the year. There's also, as I mentioned before, the training videos. There's also information about like your approved field trips and that kind of thing. So take a look at that website. There's all kinds of information. They've been doing a really great job of keeping it up to date. Above Torrance Council is the 33rd District PTA. Their website also has training videos. They provide training for financials and other positions on the board. The California State PTA website, capta.org, is also another resource that is great for you to use. The toolkit has a lot of information. That's where we they have a lot of guidelines on how to run almost everything, every aspect of your PTA. So if you have a question about something, you could always Google it. You put CAPTA toolkit and whatever topic you want to find, and a lot of times you can find it. It'll direct you to the correct page in the toolkit. I'll go over more of the CAPTA insurance, but this website is where you could find out information about the insurance company. The California Attorney General's website is also good. It has information about your charitable trust registration and also about the raffle registration and reporting that's required, also about how to different rules about how you can run your raffle. The California Secretary of State website is for incorporated units. If you have the INC after your unit name, then you are incorporated and you are required to file a statement of information every other year. So you could go on this search for your unit name and it will tell you when your statement of information is due and when the last time it was submitted. I forgot to mention, please, throughout the workshop tonight, if you have any question at all, feel free to either unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can put it in the chat and we'll make sure to try to provide the answer for you. If we can't provide it for you tonight, we will get back to you as soon as we can. So this slide is just about the general fiduciary responsibilities of the PTA, of the board. You want to remember that all of the board members of the PTA are responsible for protecting the financial assets. The funds do not belong to the board members of the PTA. It belongs to the membership of the PTA. So, and you must keep your members informed about how the PTA funds are used. And that's why we have association meetings throughout the year, so that the members can be provided with the opportunity to approve business transactions of the organization. So that's why we have at the association meetings, that's why we present to them all of our things that we make motions on and that we vote to approve. We have them approve the budget. We report our financials through our treasurer's reports. We want to keep the members informed about all fiduciary matters and be transparent about everything about the PTA. In general, what this slide shows what the financial team responsibilities are. So the financial officers are elected to manage the fiscal operations of the unit. Your bylaws will have the specific responsibilities for each position. Most units do have a treasurer, financial secretary, and an auditor. Some units do not have a financial secretary. In that case, the treasurer does the duties of both the treasurer and the financial secretary. But in general, the treasurer maintains your permanent records to track your funds and transactions, chairs the budget committee and prepares a budget for adoption by the association. Treasurer pays all the bills as authorized by the board and association, prepares and presents financial reports at the meetings, and also prepares the federal and state filings. The financial secretary should work closely with the treasurer on all financial matters. They receive and deposit the money that's received by the associations and maintains records of all the funds collected and deposited. They also prepare and present the reports at the meetings. And then the auditor, along with the audit review committee, will audit the books and financial records of the association, and then presents the report presents the audit report to the executive board and association for adoption. This here, I'm listing the responsibilities of the outgoing financial team. So everything that's listed here are things that should have been done by last year's treasurer, or mostly the treasurer or the auditor. Sorry about that. But yeah, these are mostly duties that are done by the treasurer. So your annual treasurer's report for July 1, 2021 to June 30, 2022 for last fiscal year, it was due to Torrance Council last week. So there are several units still that have not submitted that to us. I will be sending individual emails to those units to request that report. But that can be as simple as your budget to actual report that you can do in my PTEZ. Your federal and state taxes or the extension and charitable trust renewal is due by November 15th. Your taxes must be submitted to the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board by November 15th, and your charitable trust must also be submitted to the State Attorney General's office by that date. And then we do ask that you submit all pages of those items to Torrance Council by the end of November. Your raffle report. If your unit held a raffle last fiscal year, then the report must be submitted to the State Attorney General by October 1st. If you haven't done that yet, please have your last year's financial team submit that as soon as possible. And then also a copy should be turned into us at Torrance Council. This is required regardless of whether or not you held a raffle. If you registered for a raffle last year, regardless of whether or not you held the raffle report is due. So if you ended up not holding the raffle, then you just indicate that there was zero income from that raffle. And then also the audit for the period of January 1 through June 30th, 2022 should have already been completed and adopted by your board and association, and it can be turned into Torrance Council at any time. So for this year's, the current financial team, there are certain things that should be completed at the beginning of the year. One of the, as I mentioned from the previous slide, there are those responsibilities of the outgoing financial team that should have already been done. So this year's financial team should be making sure that those things have been done, especially the taxes. So you have to know, they should let you know as soon as the taxes have been done, or if they are filing an extension, make sure that in case if they are not able to have the taxes completed by the November 15th deadline, make sure that an extension has been filed. You don't want to be caught off guard by that. Make sure that is done by November 15th, plus the other responsibility as well. And also your check signers, obviously you would have had to have changed those at the bank so that you could write checks for this year. Your budget should have already been prepared and or revised and presented for approval at your board and association meetings. Also, as part of that, all the programs, events, and fundraisers that have been listed in your budget, those should also be called out for approval by the association. For insurance purposes, it must be shown in the minutes that your programs, events, and fundraisers have been approved by the association in the event that you need to file a claim for insurance. And if your unit plans to hold a raffle this year, you should submit your raffle application by September 1st, or at least 60 days prior to any raffle activities. A couple for the things that are needed. You need to appoint a couple people for financial purposes. So for your audits, there must be an audit review committee. The committee shall be appointed by the executive board and ratified by the association. The committee will review the audit after the auditor has completed the report. For units in Torrance Council, our Torrance Council auditor has agreed to be each unit's audit reviewer. You just need to make sure at your unit that Jennifer Rusty has been appointed by the executive board and then ratified at an association meeting. If you have not done that yet, you should make sure to do that at your next association meeting. Also, you need to appoint a person to review the bank statement and bank reconciliation report. This person must be a non-check signer. So it can't be any person who signs the checks. It can be your financial secretary, it could be your auditor. Just this person must be appointed by your executive board and also ratified at your association meeting. So this person will review the bank statement prior to giving it to the treasurer each month for the bank reconciliation. And then this person shall also review the bank reconciliation report each month. I'm not going to go over everything about the budget, but there are a couple things about the budget that I wanted to call to your attention. I've noticed that a few units, this has been an issue with a few units, and that a couple membership dues that have been collected by the unit may not have been forwarded to council. So I want to call out a way that you can verify that. That'll make it easy for you to verify that you are sending the proper dues amounts to council so that we may forward it on to district and state and national PTA. But let's first go over the main elements of the budget. So you have your cash balance forward as of July 1st. That's what you started at the top. You have your income section and your expense section, and then you have your total balance of 0 at the bottom. So in your income section, usually you have your administration, fundraisers, programs, and non-unit income categories. Under admin, we do recommend that you have different budget lines for the different ways that you collect membership. And again, this is only for the unit portion of the dues that you receive. So we have it separated into 3 different lines here. So 001 is for the unit portion of the dues that you collect. The unit collects directly by check, cash, or if they have an online website. 001A is where you record the unit portion of dues received by totem. And again, from totem, you only receive the unit portion of the dues. So you don't have to forward any portion of those dues onto council. For 001B, we would record the unit portion of the dues that you receive from council. Council solicits memberships for all of the units, and for convenience sake, for some people who want to be members of multiple units or all the units. And again, we only distribute to the units the unit portion of the dues. So we recommend having 3 separate lines to record the unit portion of dues. Then we also recommend having a separate line for membership donations income. We don't want your membership donations to be lumped in with your membership dues income, because then it becomes difficult to differentiate between your donations and dues amounts, and it just makes it a little bit harder to keep track of. So then you also have your fundraiser subcategory and your program subcategory. So that's how you would list your budget lines for those under those programs, under those categories, sorry. And then we also have something called the non-unit income. So this non-unit income is income that does not belong to your unit. So the transitory, the council portion of the dues that you receive is considered to be non-unit income. It's called and membership dues transitory income. So that's the portion of your dues that you forward onto council. So for instance, if your dues are $10 and you collect $10 from one member, then you would record $4 under 001, and then you record $6 under this budget line, membership dues transitory income. You want to make sure to keep that separate. These, as I said, those dues do not belong to the unit, and for tax purposes, that's not counted as part of your gross income. And then similarly, under expense, you have your administration category, fundraisers program, and non-unit expense category. And again, under your non-unit expense category, you have your membership dues transitory expense line. So these, you would record under this line the portion of the dues that you forward to council. So anytime you write a check to council for dues, you record that amount under this line. And at the end of the year, your membership dues transitory income should be equal to your membership dues transitory expense amounts. So every time that you receive income, you put it under this line, this the council portion, and anytime you write a check to council, you put the amount that you send to council under this line. There are several units, I think, that may have forgotten to forward membership dues to council, and it's easier to keep track of it as you go along throughout the year. And so if you always look at this income line and compare it to this expense line, as long as they're equal, then you know that you've forwarded all that you're supposed to council. One line that we recommend putting under the admin category is your unbudgeted expense line. So this line would contain all the funds that have not been budgeted toward any expenses. And this amount will be used to cover your unexpected or unplanned expenses throughout the year, and also would cover any cover this amount that you would carry over to the next school year that you would use to start out the school year. So this amount is changed so that your total balance can be zero. So that's why this is an odd amount. Whatever amount would make your total balance of zero, that's the amount of your unbudgeted expense. Okay. Now, keeping track of the budget is the duty of the entire board. All of you should be making sure that the expenses stay within budget. You want to make sure that all committee chairpersons, all board members are aware of what their budgeted amounts are and how much they have spent. So the budget to actual report is actually a very important report in keeping everybody informed of their income and expenses for their events. Now, the budget is a working document. It can be revised throughout the year as long as it is reapproved by the executive board and the association. And for instance, as some fundraisers may take in more money or less money than expected, and so you may need to rework what your expenses will be, or some events may not have expenses as much as you need, so some of that can be reallocated to a different budget line. But as long as they are revised and approved by the executive board and the association, then those changes can be made. I want to point out that just because you adopt the budget does not mean that the expenditure of funds has been authorized. The board still needs to approve the event plans for all of your events. And the funds also need to be released by the association at an association meeting prior to using those funds. So prior to needing these funds here, for instance, you can make a motion, someone can make a motion to release the funds and list each fund and amount. Or you can create a report, funds to be released report, post it on your drive or at the meeting on the wall, and then just make a motion, say I move to release the funds as posted. So as long as you have your event plan approved and your released funds approved by the associations, then you may write the checks to pay for these for different expenses. This is a slide. It's included in your handout. It's a full page in your handout. It just has different questions that are asked at each step of the way to determine if your check can be written. So for instance, it asks you if it's been approved in the budget. So if it has been approved, has it been authorized by the association? If not, then it has to be authorized by the board. And on and on. So just, this is a flow chart that is a helpful tool that California State PTA created. One thing that has been allowed in recent years are doing financial transactions on the internet. So these are the procedures that we recommend that you follow. And we still do recommend using the normal methods of for handling disbursements and receipts. So we still recommend that you write the check and deposit your funds at the bank. However, there are other options. You can use online payment collection systems for business use. So things such as PayPal or Square, those are allowed to be used. You can use online payment systems. So your electronic funds transfer or your bank bill pay services, those are allowed to be used. However, person-to-person apps that are not designed for business use and not protected by insurance should not be used by PTA. So Venmo, for instance, if you have a personal Venmo account, that is not allowed to be used by the PTA. I will be looking into, I did see something about Venmo for nonprofit use. I will be looking into that and asking about that to see if that is something that is going to be allowed. So do not use that yet until we confirm that we can use that by PTA, but I will be looking into that. So your personal Venmo is not allowed to be used for this, for PTA purposes. So even if you do use your electronic funds transfer or your bank bill pay system to pay expenses. The normal payment authorization form that we currently use is still needed. You still need to have the payment authorization form with original invoices or receipts. It still needs to be signed by your president and recording secretary. But in addition to that, you also need to use the form, the authorization for payment via EFT or bank bill pay services. That form needs to be filled out and signed by 2 check signers as you would sign a normal check. And then these payments should be recorded in your checkbook register, your ledger, or your treasurer's report, whatever accounting system you use. Those payments must be recorded as well. If you're using an online payment collection system or your electronic check deposit feature, you need to make sure that the revenue is accounted for each time and is recorded in your checkbook register, your reports, or your accounting system, whatever accounting system that you use. Make sure that any revenue that's collected in this manner is recorded. You want to check with your bank on the policy report regarding how many electronic deposits are allowed per month, and if there are any associated fees. You should establish procedures regarding who has access to this feature, and also create a policy on the storage or the destruction of the checks that are deposited, and also create a policy on who's going to review those electronic deposits to make sure that they match up with your cash verification forms. None of this precludes using those cash verification forms. Those are still required to be used as your receipts for receiving those funds. We do recommend that you use a separate bank account if you are using online payment collection. You should consider establishing a policy on how much funds that you want to keep in that account. And that account should be limited to online payment collections and online payment of expenses. If you're transferring funds between accounts, there's a form, an authorization to transfer funds between accounts, and that does require the signature of 2 check signers. And it also requires that a motion be made to transfer the funds at an executive board meeting or an association meeting. And also, if you do have multiple accounts, each bank account requires a separate treasurer's report and audit. This next slide just shows the 2 forms. These forms are included in the handout. It's also available at our Torrance Council PTA's website. So this is the form here that you use to transfer funds that requires the check signers, and this is the form to make a payment, online payments, and that also requires check signers. Okay, I'm not going to go over the details as treasurer's reports or of these different reports, as I'm sure you guys are all aware of what those are. If not, please go through our beginning financial training slides. Everything about all of these reports is included in that presentation. But these are the reports and motions that are to be made at your meetings. So at your monthly executive board meetings, the treasurer's report will be given by the treasurer, and then the treasurer will make a motion to ratify the checks as listed on the report and include any other checks that have already been written. And then the financial secretary will give the financial secretary's report and make a motion to approve any bills that are to be paid at the meeting, if there are any. And then the financial secretary will also report, give their budget to actual report. So that's just giving a report about the total income and expenses for the year. And then those reports will be filed for audit. And then similarly at your association meeting, you will give a treasurer's report. Your reports will cover the period between meetings. So for instance, we just had our October association meeting for council. So our treasurer's report covered the period from beginning of June through the end of September. So the treasurer's report will give their reports and also ratify checks. Similarly, the financial secretary will give that report and their budget to actual report. The other report that's required at the association meeting is the list of the funds to be released. The treasurer will make a motion to approve those funds. Now your monthly bank statements, they should be mailed to the PTA at the PTA's permanent address if you are receiving paper statements. These statements should not be mailed to the home address of any check signer. It should be mailed to the school. The bank statements should include your council checks or images of the council checks. It is acceptable to use the bank's online banking to obtain your bank statement. Some banks do charge a fee for sending out paper statements. So you are welcome to download the statement online. However, you do want to have the non-check signer review that statement prior to giving it to the treasurer. So the non-check signer will have to have access to that to the bank statement online if that's the case. And as I mentioned before, someone must review the bank statements. You have to have someone that is not a check signer to review it before giving it to the treasurer for bank reconciliation. So then your monthly bank reconciliation. So each month after your treasurer receives the bank statement, then they should reconcile that statement with your check register or your treasurer's reports to ensure that all of the bank and financial records are correct. You just want to make sure that all of the checks cleared as they were written, or that your deposits and have all matched up to what was deposited at the bank. You can use the MyPGeZ bank reconciliation feature. That makes it very simple. You just have to enter in the date of your bank statement along with the final balance, and then you'll check off each check that was cashed and deposit that was made. Or if you prefer to do it by hand, you can use the bank reconciliation worksheet that is here. It's also included in the handout. And you just want to make sure that everything has everything on your bank statement matches up with what was recorded in your checkbook register and your reports. Now, once the treasurer completes the bank reconciliation, MyPGeZ prepares a report, or you can use this worksheet that needs to be given to the person that has been approved to review the bank reconciliation. That must be done each month. And the record of it has, each person needs to sign the report as proof that it was done. Okay, we'll move on to insurance coverage. Does anyone have any questions? I know I'm moving kind of quick. I know it's a lot of information, but please, again, please do not hesitate to ask a question or put in the chat whatever question you might have. Okay, so for insurance coverage, our insurance broker is AIM, Association Insurance Management. The coverage here goes from January 5th through January 4th. I'm sure as many of you know, the captive insurance premium information has just gone out. So we'll talk about it in a minute. But the captive insurance website, this is a link right here to the website, has information of all of the coverage that is provided. But just to give an overview, there's a general liability coverage, umbrella liability, commercial crime and bonding, coverage for directors and officers, and also workers' compensation up to $1,000. There is additional coverage that you can purchase. You can find out more information in the insurance guide. And if you would like to purchase the additional coverage, then you just need to email them and they will send you information on how to enroll in that coverage. Your certificate of information will be mailed out to the unit on or about January 5th. One thing to note about, in order to keep your bond coverage, so your commercial crime bonding coverage covers incidents of embezzlement, theft, things like that. In order to keep that coverage, in case you need to file a claim, these things are required. You need to have proof that these things have been done. So your monthly bank statements and your bank reconciliation reports must be reviewed by a non-check signer each month. Your audits must be reviewed by a committee or a qualified accountant. So that those two things that I mentioned that needs to be done, the additional financial people that need to be appointed each year at the beginning of the year. These two things are required in order to keep this coverage. It's very rare that we need to make a claim for this coverage, but in the event that you do, you want to make sure that these have been done so that you are covered in case something happens. You can go back and look at the insurance guide to see exactly what's covered. If you go to the website, there was a training done earlier this month about the insurance coverage. There's more information about exactly what each of these things covers for your unit. For those of you who have been doing this a few years, notice that there is a new procedure for turning in your insurance premium. In the past, it was paid to Torrance Council and we forwarded on through channels for it to go to the insurance company. But now, starting this year, units are responsible for paying their own insurance premiums directly to the insurance company. You should have already received an email. I believe it was sent to both the president and the treasurer with information. The email has a link that you can click on that you will fill out information about your unit. And then once you fill that in and submit it online, then an invoice will be sent to you with instructions on how to pay by your online bill pay system or with a PTA check. Now, the insurance premium for units this year is $272. Now, please note that the premium and the insurance information are due no later than December 20th of this year, or a late fee of $25 will be assessed. So please make sure that you allow enough time. If you are intending to mail your check, you want to make sure that there is enough time so that the check will be received by them by December 20th. That is the date that the fees after December 20th. So please make sure that this is done on time. We will send reminders, but it is the responsibility of the unit to do it this year. So insurance coverage for the internet. We talked earlier about doing certain financial transactions online. So this slide will just go over what is available through our insurance company and what's not available. As I mentioned before, our insurance package does include commercial crime bonding coverage, which covers protection against embezzlement, robbery, and theft. So there is a component of the insurance called computer and funds transfer fraud that will cover situations where, for instance, a scammer poses as a trusted board member of the PTA in urgent need of a wire transfer or gift card. This has happened before to units where you might get a phishing email where they're saying, oh, I need help. I need you to send money. I need you to send a check. I need you to do this. And there have been instances where some people have sent the funds to that person, but always check with directly with the president. Make sure that the emails on these email addresses that send these emails are for the people who they say they are. But in the event that something does happen, it does cover this portion of the insurance does cover things like that. The insurance package does not include cyber liability coverage. So if your unit has your own website where you're collecting payments or collecting information, I'm not sure why you would need social security numbers, but if you're collecting social security numbers or credit card data, and if there was a breach of that information, if someone else was able to hack into your website or whatever and collect that information, then a cyber policy could reimburse for damages caused. However, as I said, the captive insurance company does not include that type of coverage. So if that is something that your unit does, you may want to look into finding alternate coverage. That you would have to go to a different insurance company. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with companies that do have this coverage, but you would have to go to another company to find that. One of the other additional coverage that they do cover is media liability coverage. You can pay for this through the captive insurance company. You just have to request an enrollment form to sign up for that. But it will protect your unit from liability in the event of, for instance, you have accidental misuse or disclosure of information on your website, or if you have other social media sites like Twitter, Instagram, etc., Facebook. So if you misuse a logo, copyright protections, if you use pictures that are not allowed for your use, or confidential information is in the event that things like that happen, there is this media liability coverage that you can purchase. So if any of these things are of interest, then you would contact AIM at this email address. Just let them know that you would like information on how to sign up, and they will get back to you. One other, as I mentioned, your insurance does include workers' compensation insurance. It includes it up to $1,000. So each year in January, each unit must file this workers' compensation annual payroll report. So it's used to determine if additional workers' compensation insurance premiums are due to the insurance company. So everyone must submit a report. Each unit must submit a report, even if there was no one paid. The reports will be filed in January, and it's due by January 31st, and it will be submitted directly to the insurance company. Again, these reports cover the period from January 5th through January 4th. So you will need to have information going back to the last fiscal year, starting January 5th. And then either the treasurer or the president should be filling out this form. So as I mentioned, if your PTA did not pay any employees, individuals, or independent contractors for services, then you would just check the no one paid option. But if you did pay anybody, then, so who should be listed on the report? So in general, any employees, individuals, or independent contractors that were directly paid by the PTA, those should be listed. So if you paid a babysitter, or if you paid someone for security, or a DJ, or other entertainers, if you paid them and they are an individual or an independent contractor, then those people need to be listed. Now, last year we were given instruction that any tax preparers, CPAs that did your taxes needed to be included. At the last insurance webinar that they did, they said if your tax preparer is only preparing your taxes and not doing anything else, not doing any other accounting work for your unit, then they do not need to be listed. So I'm just going by what the insurance webinar that CAPTA did a few weeks ago. So any individuals or independent contractors that you pay should be listed. You do not include individuals if your unit has, if the PTA unit is funding employees that are paid directly by the school district, you do not include those individuals. Those individuals are included under the district's workers' compensation insurance. So again, you'll have to go back to any individuals or independent contractors that have been paid starting January 5th of this current year of 2022, all the way through January 4th of 2023 on the report when you do this in January. So if the individual or independent contractor has their own workers' comp insurance, then you'll need to request a copy of that insurance and upload it with your form. If the individual independent contractor does not have their own workers' comp insurance, then your PTA may owe a surcharge. So if the total sum of what you paid to all of your individuals and independent contractors falls below $1,000, then you do not owe anything to the insurance company. But if it does go over $1,000, then you will have to pay a surcharge for that amount. Someone just asked if the form is on the TCPTA website. I'll have to check if the form is there. I see you saw it. If the form is there, that is not the form that we use anymore, since we do have to do this online it's submitted directly to the insurance company. But you should be collecting this information. So that form is just an example of what it used to look like, but everything will be done online. And then everything is done online, and then a copy of the form that the insurance company provides to you should be provided to us for record keeping. So someone asked if PTA paid, if someone from PTA paid someone and then they were reimbursed by the PTA, that should be included as a individual or independent contractor as well, since I believe it should be. I will double check on that, but I think in my thinking, it's still the PTA is paying someone just because they're paying someone else first. And I think that it's still, that person is still being paid by the PTA.
I see Carly has her hand up. Why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay, I was just wondering, some of these small vendors and stuff, like if you contact them and you can't get a hold of their, workers' comp insurance, a copy of it.
Mhm.
I mean, do we just,
You do the best you can.
And then- if we don't hear back, then we just count it as they don't have their own insurance?
Generally, I think that is probably the case if it's a small, if it's just an individual.
Mhm.
But you should try. Usually, the best time to get this information is when you hire them to do it. So you ask for all of this upfront
Mhm.
when you have them, so that it's not something that you're asking them several months later. You want to do your best to try to get whatever information you have. They can give you.
And then I was confused about the surcharge of 5% minus $1,000.
So for instance, if your total amount paid to all of your individuals and contractors was less than $1,000, then you don't owe anything to the insurance company. If you ended up paying $1,000, $1,100, say, for the whole year to all of your individuals and independent contractors that were hired, then you would owe a 5% surcharge on the extra $100.
Got it. Okay. And that's all of them combined.
All of them combined, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So another question they had for you was, does the person reviewing the bank statements, if they're already a board member, do they need to be approved by the board in order to review and sign the bank statements?
That person should be approved, yes.
And then also, if they complete the bank reconciliation on my PTEZ, do you have to do the paper version too?
No. That was just an option to do it in case they'd rather do it by hand. My PTEZ version is very easy to do, so I just would recommend doing that. But some people still like to do things by hand. Okay, any other questions about the workers' comp? AIM will send, someone's asking if they're going to send us a form to fill out. AIM will send an email with a link on how to fill out this form. So be looking for that probably December, January. And it would probably come from capta@aim-companies.com is the email address. So look for that email, but yeah, they will send the workers' comp link later in December and January. And yeah, the emails for the insurance did already go out. So yeah, but we just want to make sure that everyone does that by December. And again, this workers' comp is due by January 31st. And we'll make sure this, again, this workers' comp form is based on their insurance calendar year, which is January 5th to January 4th. So now would be a good time, if you don't, to check on your vendors that were used last school year, to make sure that you have that information ahead of time. Okay, one other So again, this is 1099 is also for individuals and independent contractors. These are, again, for individuals, contractors, vendors who are not incorporated. That units pay more $600 or more for services in the calendar year. So if that is the case, then the unit must issue the form 1099 to those people by January 31st. As you know, your personal taxes are on a calendar year basis. Our PTA taxes are on our fiscal year starting in July 1st. So there's a little bit of disconnect there, but the 1099s for these individuals, independent contractors and vendors must go out to them. They must receive it by January 31st. So basically any individual independent contractor vendor who's not incorporated, I already said that, but I'm just really that are not treated as a corporation for tax purposes, they are required to receive this form by January 31st. And also, if there is an independent contractor or vendor who is paid less than $600 and they request a form, you must provide one for them. Again, it is by calendar year, not the fiscal year. What the PTA units should do, again, like your workers' comp insurance, when you hire these vendors or independent contractors, you should request from them a W-9, which is a request for taxpayer identification number. You should request their workers' comp. If you do it all at the same time as you're doing your business with them, then it's more likely that they will return it to you in a timely manner. Also, if in California, that you must report to the California EDD department on the form DE 542 if you pay them $600 or more. Unfortunately, my PPEZ does not have the ability to create these 1099s for you. You must request the forms from the IRS. So if you know that you will be paying more than $600 for this calendar year, or you know that there already were, then you should request you can request free forms from the IRS. These forms could also be purchased from stationery stores like Staples, or you can get them on Amazon. Excuse me. But yeah, you should take some time to receive the free forms from the IRS. You must do that ahead of time, or make the purchase at a store. Is there any more questions about that? I know it's confusing. I had to do a deep dive into it a couple years ago because I had to do it for one of the unit I was at. But once you figure it out, it's not too bad. Again, these are things that you want to request your W-9 and the workers' comp from them as you're hiring them, as the event is going on, so it's current in their mind, so that you don't have to go back to them months later to ask for that information. Okay. Question? Carly, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's a stupid question, but this is just for services, right? It's not for purchases of things.
Not for purchases. They provide a service. So if you have a DJ, for instance, or photo booth person that comes to your event, say, and it costs more than $600, that kind of thing. If you have someone putting on a show for you, that's an individual or independent contractor. And yes, but that's why you ask for the W-9. If they on their W-9 say that they are a S Corp or a C Corp, then that you do not need to submit a 1099 to them.
Okay.
But if it is an individual, a person coming as an individual or an independent contractor, then yes, you do need to submit a 1099 to them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? And also, feel free to reach out to your tax preparer or CPA if you have questions regarding this. They would probably know more than I about all of this stuff, but I'll try to help you wherever I can. Okay, so now on to what federal and state filings that each unit is required to do each year. I already mentioned this at the very beginning. As I mentioned, we do this on a fiscal year basis. So your federal and state taxes will be due by November 15th. Federals to the IRS, your state taxes are to the Franchise Tax Board. Your charitable trust renewal is due to the California Attorney General's office. Keep in mind when you do your charitable trust renewal form, you either must send a copy of your taxes if you file a 990 or 990 EZ, or your unit must file a form called the CTTR1, which is something additional that the Attorney General's office requires if your unit files the 990N, which is the e-postcard. Also for state, your raffle, you need to register your raffle with the California Attorney General's office, and you need to file a raffle report at the end of the school year. And then also for incorporated units, you must file a statement of information to the California Secretary of State's office every year. There's a whole bunch of information in the handouts regarding how you can look up certain things about your federal taxes, look up your status for your charitable trusts, your raffles, and your statement of information. So be sure to look in the handout for information on how to find out the status of your unit. So one thing that's needed to do your taxes is the treasurer's annual report. The treasurer, as I mentioned before, the treasurer is required to prepare this report at the end of the fiscal year. It just summarizes your gross receipts and disbursements for the year. Usually your tax preparer uses this report to prepare and file your taxes, and that is due to council and district PTA. There's different ways to do the report. I think the easiest, since most units do use MyPTEZ, the easiest way to do this report is to just create the budget to actual report that covers the entire fiscal year. There is an Excel file that you can use to create this report. It's a little bit more work, but it's also doable. Or you could choose to create your own report that has all the information as needed, as found in the toolkit online. So a copy of this report, as I mentioned, was due at the October Executive Board meeting. Okay, if you guys haven't, I don't know if you guys all are looking at the chat, but Mary has said that there is a report in MyPTEZ for the numbers for the 1099. I think in order to do that, you must, when you write your check, it asks you if the payee is a parent or vendor or volunteer. And as long as you mark them as vendors, and I think this information comes out. Is that correct, Mary?
Yes,
so,
I believe so. You do have to indicate the vendors are 1099 vendors, and then they will come out.
okay, but it
And
doesn't
it's just the
create
numbers. It's not the actual forms.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Thank you. Okay, then, okay, so as we mentioned before, the auditor performs audit to look at our financial books each year. So the treasurer and the financial secretaries must prepare all the materials that are needed for the audit. So there are 2 audits per year. The first one is July 1 through December 31. This one has a little bit of a quick turnaround. The target completion date is to have it done so that you can have it adopted at your February executive board and association meetings. You just want to get that done as quickly as possible. Then your January 1 through June 30th is through the end of the year, and your target completion date is later. It's not until, you probably won't adopt that until your September executive board and association meetings. So the financial records that you need to give to your auditor for each audit period, you'll have a permanent financial record book. I will go over that in the next slide. You'll want to give them your checkbook register, your bank statements, your bank reconciliation reports, all of your payment authorization forms for that period, along with the receipts and invoices, all of your cash verification and deposit records for that period, and also all of your federal and state filings that have been filed during that audit period. Now, the permanent financial record. Each unit must have a permanent record book that should include your monthly receipts and disbursements. So what we do at council is we use the monthly treasurer and financial secretary reports as our record of our monthly receipts and disbursements. You could use separate receipt and disbursement ledgers, but since most units do use MyPTEZ, I think those treasurer and financial secretary reports are the easiest to do. You should have a summary of the receipts and disbursements for each audit period. So for instance, in MyPTEZ, you can use your budget to actual report, or you can use, there's something called the financial report in MyPTEZ. You should keep your audits in that record. So the way we have our permanent financial book right now is we do the monthly treasurer's report, financial secretary's report for that whole entire audit period. And then once the audit has been completed, we put that into the book. And we also try to put the annual treasurer's report into the book. So all of these permanent records are kept in one place. And then just that book is your record that is kept permanently. What we suggest you do, or this is just what we do actually at council, is we purchase a bound journal book, and then we print out each page of information on full page sheets of labels and just stick them in the book. You can buy those full page sheets of labels. You can buy them on Amazon, at Staples, or anything like that. But you just print your reports out on those pages and stick them in the book, and then hand that entire book to the auditor as your permanent record. And then once they're done with it, and once the book has been completed, then that just goes into your storage of your permanent records. Then we also suggest that you have a separate binder that holds copies of your federal and state filings. So you want to make sure that you keep your federal and state tax returns, your charitable trust, your raffle registration reports, your statement of information. Those are also things that need to be kept permanently, separate binder or folder, so that those do not get misplaced. So one thing that many, when you're doing fundraisers or some of your, if you're purchasing items from some people, sometimes they want to know about your proof of your tax exempt status. They want proof that you are a 501c3 organization. So in order to keep your tax exempt status, your PTA must be in good standing with all federal and state filings. You can request a letter of determination that will give proof of that. The letter of determination will include letters from the IRS and Franchise Tax Board indicating that you have your tax exempt status. And it will also include a letter from CAPTA confirming that the unit is part of the California PTA. Now, the president or treasurer can request the letter of determination from CAPTA by sending an email to this address. And your email should include all of the following information: your unit name, council name, district, and the president name. There is an entity status letter that you can get from the Franchise Tax Board. In fact, this letter is required when you're replying or registering for a raffle. Your unit must be in good standing with the state in order to have a raffle. Also, so companies or organizations donating to the PTA may request one of these. They may request a letter of determination or a form W-9. So there is a sample W-9 in the handout on how to fill that out, and you can give that to them. So you should have a letter of determination on hand each year. So if you haven't already done so for this school year, then you should request one and have that on hand in case any organization requests it. So one other thing that always comes up every year is gifts to school or classroom rewards. So classroom rewards, many schools have programs such as this where a PTA will purchase approved supplies to be used by teachers, students, and classrooms. So programs such as this are allowed if you have association approval. So for instance, there might be schools that allow teachers to submit receipts for supplies that they will use in their classrooms, like up to $50 per year or $100 per year, whatever the PTA unit decides on. So that's what we call classroom rewards. Gifts to school are usually larger items. Generally, they're larger items that stay with the school. Now, people are not required to be given by the unit to the school each year. It is not something that a school can expect to have every year. Usually it's gifts to school are given if the PTA has excess funds for that year for whatever reason. If your fundraising did very well, so you may have extra funds that you're able to donate to the school to purchase items that they may need at the school site. It's not something, it's not, unless you had funds that were donated for that purpose, or unless it is something that you are trying to be able to give to the school year after year, there should not be a budget. You should not have a generic gift to school budget line in your budget. You're not doing fundraisers for the purpose of giving a gift to school. Gift to school in general is just if there are excess funds. So if there are excess funds for a unit, then each unit, you should form a gift to school committee. So the gift to school committee will be composed of your PTA president or other board members, along with the school principal or other administrators or teachers. You want to talk about what the needs of the school are, along with what funds are available in the PTA to cover these items. And then this committee will decide on what's the best use of those funds and then provide recommendations to the executive board. So once these recommendations are made to the executive board will discuss and decide if they will fund, which items they will fund and give to the school that year. And then once the executive board approves those gifts, then those gifts will be presented to the association for approval. And only after the association has approved those gifts, then the gifts can be made. The one thing that is to note is that field trips and payments for bus transportation for those field trips are considered as gifts to school. So that those field trips must be approved by TUSD. And if you are paying for bus transportation, that must be paid through the district as well. That's for liability purposes. You want to make sure that the district is paying for the bus transportation directly and that you are reimbursing them for payment. So for all gifts to school, your unit and the school and the district must sign a fiduciary agreement. So the purpose of this agreement, if you are donating funds to the school to be spent for a specific purpose, this top portion here documents what the school's responsibility is to spend those funds and by what date and for only the purpose designated by the PTA. If you are purchasing some type of equipment that you're donating to the school, you fill out this bottom portion, and the agreement is so that you transfer the ownership of that equipment and the responsibility for that equipment to the school. So installation, the operation, maintenance of all of the equipment is the school's responsibility once they accept it. The agreement should be completed for all donations to your school. It requires the signature of the president, the treasurer, and the school administrator. Now, this form was put together. Torrance Council and TUSD worked on this form together, so it was acceptable to both the district and the PTA. It is to be used to keep track. You want to use it to keep track of your donations. So you want to make sure that if you have donated funds to the school, then they have used that money for the specific purpose and by the specific date. And also if if there was a large amount of money that was donated to school that had not been used for that purpose, then the PTA could ask for those funds to be returned. But most likely the schools do use the donated funds for whatever purpose they were donated for. If a school administrator chooses not to sign it, if they don't agree to these terms, they do not have to accept a gift from the PTA. That is up to, it's for the PTA to work out with the administrator, but in general, this form should be signed by all parties and it should be reported to the district as a gift to school. Okay, so financial records retention. There are certain things that need to be kept permanently. So everything that I had mentioned earlier is being put into the permanent financial book. These are things that need to be kept permanently forever. That you keep in your storage for all of your other financial records, or PTA records, I mean. There are certain things that only need to be kept for 7 years. So for instance, your payment authorizations, receipts, cash verification, deposit receipts, bank statements, reconciliations, etc. These things only need to be kept for 7 years. So the way I suggest doing it is you keep a bag or two, like I use those 2-liter Ziploc bags, put all of these items that will fit into there for 1 year and mark on the outside what year that covers, and then keep that in your storage. And then it's easier as you go through 7 years later, you say, oh, this whole bag can be shredded and destroyed. The full records retention and destruction policy is on the CAPTA website. So that has information about all of your other records that may need to be kept. And this slide just has all of the financial turn-in dates of everything due throughout the year. So every month, you need to turn in your treasurer's reports and any membership dues that you have collected. Then every September, you want to make sure that all of your treasurer's reports from the previous year have been turned in. October, you should be turning in your audit, your approved budget, your annual report, your raffle report and registration, any association meeting reports. November, December, you want to make sure you turn in all of your tax returns, charitable trust, your insurance payment is due, and any donations for council and district projects, scholarship, Project Hope, Project Boss, etc. December, January, your workers' comp report is due. And then if you had an association meeting, you turn in your association reports. March and April, you want to turn in your audit for the first half of the fiscal year, plus any revised budgets as necessary. And then if you had an association meeting, your reports for that. In May and June, you want to make sure that you review your membership dues and make sure that all of your all of your membership dues that you have collected, the council portion has been submitted to council. You want to make sure you get that in before really May. You want to try to get that in by May, but you want to make sure that everything has been submitted. And then as needed, there will be payments that you'll need to turn into council for meetings or luncheons. And if you have anything else like statements of information, fiduciary agreements, any other documents. So those are just on an as needed basis. This is just so you have an idea of where things fall in the calendar year and when things need to be turned in. Jennifer is asking, docs listed prior to 2014 can go. Yes, as long as it's on the 7-year retention schedule. Anything permanent needs to be kept forever. But as long as it's only for 7 years or temporary, that you need to keep for as long as needed, then yes, if it's more than 7 years old, prior to 2014, yes, you can shred those documents. And we have reached the end of our workshop. Are there any other questions? Feel free to unmute and ask questions. Oh, Kaylee, you have a question?
Yeah, the raffle reports,
Uh-huh.
the turn-in stuff, the raffle registration. Do you want the registration prior to them approving it? Or do you want the raffle registration form after they've approved it?
after they've approved it, and we want to know that if you've applied for it, that we have it on record for you.
Okay, so I applied for Wood. I already received back that it's approved.
Uh-huh.
And then I sent launches, but the treasurer wrote the wrong date on the check, so they sent it back, but I've already sent it back. So you want the filled out form sent and then also the
The
form,
confirmation.
okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
You're welcome. Someone's asking about the financial secretary reports. Those aren't required. You're welcome to send that in. We do just, Carrie, is that okay, Carrie? She accepts all the reports for turn in, and some units turn in both. Some units only turn in the treasurer's report. We do ask for the treasurer's report at least. Carrie?
Yeah, sorry. What was the question?
Someone asked if financial secretary reports can be turned in.
Oh, yeah, I get them from probably half the units.
Okay. I mean, it is helpful in that it provides more information. So she will accept them, but if I guess it's up to the unit if they want to. We do ask for the treasurer's report, definitely. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
I'm just wondering about some of the lines that are harder to budget for, like the book fair, where you don't really know how much you're going to end up owing the book fair company once it comes time to pass that cash that you received along to them. How do you guys deal with that? Do you just revise the budget later? What if more is needed to be sent along
Well,
than originally?
So the book fairs work where you take in the funds first and then you pay out a portion, whatever is due to the book fair company, correct?
Right.
So we usually call those like an in and out budget line. So whatever comes in, whatever goes out is never more than what comes in.
Right.
So you have an
but
estimate of what your income will be, and then you have an estimate on what your expense will be just based on history, what you've done in prior years.
Right. But they do have to be separated on the budget to actual as far as the income side of it and the expense side, right?
Yes.
So, but it's okay then if you go over budget basically on the expense side, as long as it's not more than the income was. Is that what you're saying? Or do we need to revise the budget and have it approved then if we end up having to pay more to Scholastic or?
That is what I'm saying, that as long as your expense is not greater than your increase. Am I correct, Mary? Do you agree?
I think that is correct. Yes.
Okay, so it's okay on the expense side if it's more than you originally budgeted, as long as it's not more than the income you took in.
Yeah, I think so. So it's one of those things where you have it's an income in and out budget line. You have your income and expense, and you're only going to pay whatever based on a percentage of your income. So like a lot of these fundraisers that some schools do, they take in the funds, but then they have to pay out funds to the fundraising company.
Right.
So you never know what that's going to be each year.
Right.
But as long as it's only up to whatever's due based on your income.
Making money on the fundraiser or whatever the program
Yes.
is. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Are there any other questions? Again, feel free to ask any of us any questions that you may have along the way. Please don't wait until something gets too complicated and you don't want to get too involved in it. You want to make sure that you ask a question as soon as possible so that you're not stuck and wondering what to do. Just feel free to ask the question regardless of what it is, and reach out to any of us and with any questions that you may have. So thank you all for attending. I know I went over, someone asked me how long it might take. I'm sorry I went over a little bit, but thank you all for attending. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Like I said, feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Shani.
Thank
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jeannie, for all your help always.
Sure, no problem.